How's everyone doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. If you haven't already, go ahead and sign in. We are on the 220304 SIG Security meeting in your Google Docs. I'll drop into the chat a link to our agenda and notes. Thanks, Brandon. So will Brendan. Today we don't have any scheduled presentations or big meaty topics, so it's going to be more of a working session. So if you're new or orienting, may not be the best meeting for that, but you know, if you are new, go ahead and stick around. We do check-ins and introductions at the beginning of our meeting, so you know, feel free to you know, say hi and you know, come back next week where we have a more formal agenda and presentation schedule. I'm looking for a couple folks who are interested in scribing today. We usually have, oh, thanks. If you're new and not familiar, in our attendance, if you don't want to get called upon and asked to share out, you'll see the other folks putting in no update. That way I know as I'm going through that attendance list, not to call on you. I won't bother you. Still looking for a couple scribes. I'd love to get good notes for today. And if anybody has anything pressing, maybe bring it up during the check-ins. So don't put no updates if you need to. Awesome. If you need to propose something, please do it in your update. Tim, when you got a second, I know you're on a call. DOD is Department of Defense. I'm a former defense contractor, so that's what I assume. If it's not Department of Defense, you might want to clarify. Thanks, Tim. All right, let's go ahead. Thank you, Ben. Ben Copperston's gonna take notes. Still looking for one more scribe to support Ben, especially if Ben is talking. You know, that's where the secondary really comes into play. Thank you, Ben. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'll go down to the list. So quick check-in from the TOC meeting yesterday. We presented, you know, yesterday was the SIG check-ins and, you know, a couple big items there. We presented everybody with the, you know, voted on tech leads and, you know, had the opportunity to share that out. You know, that's a sort of a big process moment for us, and you know, we're really happy that we have Justin and Brandon and Emily joining us as tech leads, formally recognized with the TOC. We're reaching out to our liaison, Liz Rice and Justin Cormack, to set up a meeting with the TOC to get our tech leads introduced to TOC members and build a little bit more connective tissues there. If for folks who are new, SIG Security was formerly the Safe Working Group, and we are kind of the guinea pig for working groups that eventually was rebranded as SIGs, Special Interest Groups, for the CNCF. So, our sort of going through the election process and selection process of tech leads is we're kind of showing the way. So part of our desire to do that is really to support and enable the folks that are supporting this group in their broader interactions and engagement with the CNCF as well. Then we'll touch on Harbor. Harbor is going through due diligence and potentially graduating. That so far hasn't included SIG Security. There's quite a pylon of groups engaging there, and we're beginning to discuss how much we want to assert that the SIG Security check mark should be a part of that. Matthew Crane, welcome. Do you want to say hi, Matthew? I know you said you didn't have any updates, but if you're new, we'd just like to know who you are and why you're joining us. If not, I'll move on.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Matt. I come from FICO and was given this invite from a colleague who's also on the call, Stephen Hadfield. Just really looking to participate and learn more. Thanks.
Awesome. Welcome. Brendan?
Hi. Yeah, this is Brandon. I'm from IBM. And just a couple of things, I guess. I've been working on trying to figure out how to make the triage process a little bit better. So I'm looking at a couple bots that we can use, as well as possibility creating a project so that we can better manage the triage. And I think one other thing that I've kind of like put into agenda, which is the issue on the code owners as a pull request that's open, which I think should be ready. So once we get the reviews on that, we should be able to merge it in.
Awesome. If you haven't had the opportunity already, maybe let's add a link off to that particular issue. So yeah, I'll we can get more eyes on. Awesome. Thank you. Tim Fong mentions that he's not going to be able to check in, but shares a note. Tim's working on DoD assessment of Kubernetes security and would like to sync with some folks after the call. This particular call is recorded in public forum. I'd be happy to stick around for about a half an hour, 11 to 11:30 Pacific time would work for me, and we may want to take that and move that to a separate forum, since this will be this forum will be recorded and shared with all the members of the CNCF.
You can have Jim reach out to me on Slack. This is Emily.
Awesome, Emily. I didn't want to throw you under that particular bus, but I definitely was connecting dots there.
I'm usually the one that they end up talking to anyways.
Right on, right on. Okay. So Tim, if you haven't joined us on Slack, it sounds like Emily not necessarily available right now, but it's a great person to connect with, since she's also serving. All right, Emily, you're next.
So for those of you that don't know yet, CNCF posted an update regarding KubeCon and Cloud Native Con. It has been postponed until July, August timeframe. It will still be in Amsterdam. They're looking to get new dates published within the next 2 weeks. So please bear with us as we figure out how to proceed. That includes Security Day as well, as being postponed as well. So that's kind of the major update that I have right now. So apologies to inconvenience anyone, but the health of all attendees is really what's important right now.
Sarah and I were talking about potentially in that time and space, as we were sort of each personally building contingency plans. Sarah had made the judgment call, over the weekend, I believe, to not go to Amsterdam. So that moving, KubeCon is creating a bit of a vacuum. Maybe there's an opportunity to do something remote in that time, and maybe sort of build momentum towards Security Day. Something to consider that I think it might be nice, since so many of us have had our schedules and lives disrupted by the growing coronavirus crisis.
If you could comment on issue 305 with that recommendation, we'll add it to the discussion with CNCF about maybe doing an interim Security Day.
Right on. Awesome. Will do. Thank you. 305. All right. David, welcome. David Brind.
Hi. My name is David. I'm with eBay, just in the InfoSec department, specifically around threat detection, just kind of reaching out to the community and seeing what sort of content is already out there.
Awesome. Welcome. Ash?
Hi, I'm Ash Narkar. I'm one of the maintainers of the Open Policy Agent. I had an issue to discuss in the agenda later about security assessments, so I can come back later for that. Thanks.
Great. Looking forward to that. Alex, welcome.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a software engineer at Lyft, and I'm going to be presenting next week actually on our open source graph tool cartography, which helps give visibility to your security assets. And yeah, I'll share more about that later on, but here to learn a lot and see what's going on in the security open source space.
Looking forward to that, and great opportunity for folks that are new, to come in and dive into some more. This is going to be discussion heavy. Next week we'll have a presentation and get some really interesting insight to what industry leaders like Alex and folks at Lyft are doing. David, that's all.
David, you're muted.
Thank you. I forgot to unmute that.
Double mute on the phone.
Not just on my headset. Yeah. So I am David Vestal here with Worldwide Technology within our container platforms practice. I am new. I think technically this is my second SIG to actually attend. I learned about the Kubernetes SIGs actually on the Google Kubernetes podcast, and I have wanted to get more involved in the community. So this is me starting.
Awesome. Welcome. Mark.
Hey guys, welcome again. Usually representing myself here, but I'll just remind the new people I am affiliated with Synchrony. So we have another FinTech connected with Enterprise. I wanted to mention today, this is basically via our NIST Big Data Working Group. There's a project, which I'm going to put the link in the chat. It's also in the notes, from a project at Indiana University called Cloud Mesh that we're working with. It looks like NIST is going to be trying to integrate some security components that we want to ingest into this Cloud Mesh framework that's being built by Indiana University and some graduate students there that implement the big data security framework that was proposed in the latest version of that work, which I and a collaborator at Fujitsu worked on. So I tried to explain what this SIG does with mixed results to that community yesterday. I think probably what I need to do is invite someone to come do a presentation
that'd be great.
from here to them. And that's a much smaller group. So we either should do that or have Gregor, who's the professor leading up this Cloud Mesh work, talk about it. Because I think, you know, there's a number of possible overlaps, some to existing open source projects, but also maybe just to, you know, get some alignment between that kind of abstract framework that was proposed for security and privacy and some of the more pragmatic reviews that we're trying to do in this working group. So just a quick overview. I don't really have anything more to say in depth about it today.
Great, that's fantastic, Mark. You know, one thing that you know, as we head into what is this third or fourth TOC, and you know, sort of hitting our you know, level of maturity and you know, understanding of process and really you know, clarifying, you know, what we mean by cloud native. You know, I think this opportunity to hear from these folks and see, you know, get some insight from you know, the NIST community on why they're choosing this, and sort of validate that against you know, our assumptions of what cloud native is, I think would be very constructive. It's something that we're definitely grappling with as you know, some projects are sort of on the inside and some projects on the outside, and you know, we're trying to get more concrete definitions, so you know, folks to have a clear understanding of you know, why you know, they would be included or potentially not included in the CNCF.
Yep, I hear you. I think it makes most sense to probably invite someone to come present here.
Yep. So maybe if you could create an issue once you on GitHub, once you get to you know, some consensus with them, that'd be great. We can track it. Stephen Hadfield. Stephen, can't hear you if you're muted.
It helps not to be doubly muted.
Yeah, the double mute on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been attending SIG Security since KubeCon San Diego, but only just officially now a member. So
welcome.
Yeah. Continuing to stay up to date and trying to stay on top of the Cloud Custodian review.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you. Welcome, Stephen. And I don't believe I have that on the agenda, but you know, per comment with Stephen, you know, if you've been active and, you know, participating in meetings, we'd love to add you to our official roster. You know, I'll try to you know, go and grab the link to you know, kind of our new member definition and the guidelines on you know, when you should add yourself a little bit later. But we welcome Stephen, and you know, if you're you know, active in SIG Security, please add yourself as a member. So let's go ahead and have time for check-ins. So any updates from any of the Kubernetes SIGs, or Mark, you said no other updates around NIST. Any updates there, SIGs and working groups?
Policy work group is, I think, going to move our meeting to earlier in the day, so like 8 a.m. on Wednesdays. I'm just waiting for Howard and Erica to confirm, but then you should see new invites go out.
Awesome. Great. Looking forward to that. For folks, since we have a number of new folks here, Robert, would you mind, sort of, explain to folks what the policy subgroup is and the SIG policy is?
Oh, sure. I mean, the policy working group is essentially focused on any application of policy within Kubernetes primarily. It has a security focus, though we've had discussions and presentations around other policy within the Kubernetes environment, such as utilization, resource usage. But yeah, I mean, obviously it has kind of a heavy security skew to it. Right now, we're actively considering a few proposals. One is a policy violation CR definition that was proposed by Nirmata, part of the Caverno project. We've done some work in the past around provable security / formal verification. There are some discussions around doing things in RBAC, validation, verification. I've had some presentations for folks at Google around their AI-based approach. So those are kind of the topics that intersect with our group.
Perfect. And next week you'll have new times to update with everybody.
Yeah, we're trying to experiment with an earlier EU compatible time. So I think the proposal is 8 a.m. Pacific.
Okay, nice. Great. And if you aren't able to make next week, maybe in the the top of our meeting notes document, you could drop in the new time once that finalizes. Be great.
Will do.
We'll update everybody. Okay, so again, if you're new, most of the rest of the meeting is going to be sort of inner workings of the SIG. You're welcome to stay, get oriented. Next week we're having a presentation, so it might be a much more interesting introduction to the work that we do here at SIG Security. My next agenda item is a call for meeting facilitators. In the various roles. Here, let me drop the link to meeting facilitators. Get back to everybody. So, meeting facilitator, basically kind of runs the agenda, runs the meeting, and it's a great opportunity to, get to know everybody and, dive a little bit deeper. Brendan, are you still on? You've been active as a meeting facilitator recently, and maybe would you mind sort of sharing what meeting facilitator looks and feels like to folks who may be considering that?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say it's kind of just a couple things. Mainly it's just getting the group together, setting up the agenda in the docs, and kind of just making sure that there are scribes of the meeting, that we keep the agenda, make sure we have time for all the things that are planned, and when there's a presentation or someone that's coming to talk, we just make sure that they're still good for the time, and make sure that everything runs smoothly. Yeah, but I would say it's kind of not that big of a add-on. It's kind of just, if you're already going to be at the meeting, it's just, you know, a couple of checkboxes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would, you know, from my experience, you know, one of the hardest things is just sort of managing through dead air, getting a little bit comfortable with, you know, a few moments where there'll be pauses, everyone's on mute, and just keeping the, you know, the meeting flow going. Matthew, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, my timing was poor. With respect to if someone were to volunteer as a meeting facilitator, how versed does one need to be essentially with the day-to-day or the regular discussions taking place? Like, is the agenda, pieces of it provided in advance, or do facilitators have to come up with the agenda by reaching out to other team members and sort of figuring out what topics to cover, such as the call for meeting facilitators, mentioning the SIG working group updates? Like, just how do you put the meetings together, I guess?
Right. So are you in our notes and meeting document? Probably the easiest way to orient you then.
Yes, CNCF SIG Security meeting notes, and I've actually been taking minutes so far.
Oh, that's right. I apologize for not having chat, you know, cycles to chat and discuss. I appreciate that. So, you know, in that, at the very top, we have kind of the agenda building section. And then below that, we have, you know, the actual, you know, meeting instance and notes. So, you know, we generally try to fill those out as we're, you know, planning, you know, meetings and add notes there. And then, you know, kind of day of, you know, for me, it's usually like, you know, the half an hour or so before the meeting, I'll go in, you know, scrub those notes and go through it. You know, if, you know, and I'm so, you know, sort of deep in the working group and you know, as co-chair, am, you know, participating in the other, you know, connective tissue meetings to the CNCF, so TOC meetings, our liaison meetings, and we have a dedicated set of meetings for co-chairs, and we'll be spinning up some time for tech leads. So, you know, like you said, I do have that ongoing pulse. You know, maybe I can kick it back to Brandon. You know, beyond like what's in the notes, you know, what are some of the ways that you've helped build and make sure that you have a good enough agenda before starting a meeting?
So most of the time, I feel like the agenda kind of fills up for itself. So there's this section that's on top of the meeting notes that kind of talks about, you know, what some people want to do. But other than that, one thing that I like to do, since I do triage once in a while anyway, so I kind of like just go through the issues and pick like a couple that I think would be interesting to talk about, or some that seem like they're in the middle of discussion that, you know, could be good to have some FaceTime on. Yeah.
Should I reach out either to you, Dan, or you, Brandon, just after maybe via email or Slack, just to confirm a few details? Because as long as I can get it right, sure, I'm happy to help out as a facilitator / note keeper.
Sure.
Well, you know, since we have a presentation next week, which is, you know, basically going to fill, you know, most of your time. And so it's, you know, doing the check-ins, getting scribes, and then you'll basically be handing, you know, most of the time off to Alex. That might be a great opportunity to do your first facilitation. Like throwing you into a dead week, no, not a dead week, but like a week like this week with, you know, kind of an open schedule. Seems like, you know, not the best opportunity, but, you know, next week, since we have a presentation, seems like a great opportunity. And, you know, I'll be around, you know, and, you know, happy to support you.
Should I reach out via the SIG Security Slack channel or just grab your email off the GitHub profiles? What's the preferred approach?
For me, Slack. So Slack's gonna be better. And then if you want to, go to the planned meetings and pencil yourself in as facilitator, or add that whenever you've confirmed the follow up that you want to do. Please feel free.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. The introduction, for us as the co-chairs of the meeting facilitator has been, a real huge help. There are so many activities, and this is the real anchor interaction that we have every week, and being able to get some support on that, and have members of the SIG, help us drive that forward. It's been amazing. All right. Anyone else interested in meeting facilitator? Any other questions around meeting facilitators? No, we'll move on.
Hi, Dan. This is Vinay. I'm also interested, happy to help. I will reach out accordingly. Thanks for the insights on how we can help out there.
Wonderful, wonderful, and happy to look for a similar opportunity with you, Vinay. Where we have a little bit more structured meeting, since you're looking for your first time. I can help find the right opportunity with you.
Would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So general cleanup on issues. Emily, are you still on? Are you able to talk?
I'm still on. So I was going through the triage tickets based off of Sarah's comment on issue 326 to look at some of the security assessment process improvements, and found several tickets that looked like they had been open for a while. We had talked about them, and then we all got really busy with a lot of things, and we never went back to it. So I know Brandon has been going through everything and trying to get more updates and commenting on tickets to try to drive traffic back to them. But I was hoping that some of the new members of the group and some of the existing members can kind of take a look at the open issues that we have, see if they look like they've been resolved or if there needs to be more clarity on them. If there's been a PR against it, look at the PR and comment whether or not it looks good or if it needs improvement. Just general repo maintenance and cleanup, I think, is what needs to start happening. We've been really busy recently, and we've been doing a lot of things, and I don't want some of the great ideas that people have put into the repo to get lost.
Yeah, and along those lines, part of our intent in moving forward with electing tech leads is really to increase the bandwidth of individuals who have roles and responsibilities that can deal with some of these issues and make sure that we're keeping that pipeline moving through. So we've grown a lot and added some really constructive processes that are being integrated into the overall workflows of the CNCF, and as that happens, there's still kind of the detail work and the cleanup that needs to be dealt with. So invitation there, if you have some cycles and you're interested in getting more involved, getting involved in the issue tracker of SIG Security is a great way to come in, chop wood, carry water, and really become a member of this SIG. Both Brandon and Emily, who were recently elected tech leads. A key part of their coming into the SIG and coming into leadership, is being proactive on contributing in that way. Brendan, do you have anything else that you wanted to add to stagnant issues and just cleaning up there?
Yeah, so I think I added one entry on the code owners.
330. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that is pretty much really. I think the idea was that we wanted to get a approval from whoever is mentioned in the code owners file, just to at least the ones that are not commented out, just to kind of treat it as a acknowledgement of the code owner. So what this file actually is going to do is we're going to enable flag within the GitHub repository settings for the master branch, so that whenever a PR is created, whoever's a code owner for that file will be automatically added as a reviewer. And also, I believe it will require at least one approval from a code owner. And so I think that's one of the things that we're doing to kind of take the kind of partition the repo. So we have project owners. So for example, with the supply chain catalog, Santiago is the main maintainer of that. So kind of split up the responsibility.
Would that allow people that aren't owners to be, I guess, quote unquote, critical reviewers too, that are automatically added? Or is it just the one single owner per project?
So you can do multiple, and the requirement is at least one to be merged. This is kind of, I think it's still in like a GitHub beta. One of the restrictions currently of this feature is that whoever's a co-owner has to have write access, which is not ideal, but I think seems like enough people want this fixed that it would probably happen in the future.
Right.
But for now, it's going to simplify our management thing, because I find a lot of the time during triage is that I'm basically calling attention to certain issues that the co-owners may, because there's a ton that come in, they may not be aware of.
Right. Yeah. Sarah's flying today, and JJ's in India, and kind of in a crunch moment in his work responsibilities. So I'm on point, but that sort of ramps up other time commitments for me. So I'll take the action of corralling JJ and making sure that we finalize our input on that, so we can basically sort of open up more bandwidth for the group. Thanks, Brendan. Really appreciate the you moving that forward. Vinay, no, we're just going through the agenda. There's no one sharing any video. So the next item that I have is Jonathan Meadows. We had a presentation by Jonathan Meadows scheduled a few weeks ago, and we had to reschedule. Does anyone know Jonathan, or anything about that? And should we circle back around?
What was the agenda for this one? So he did the threat modeling the last time. What was the follow-up topic from that?
Well, open source training, I believe.
Oh, we already did that one.
Oh, we did it. Okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
I think I missed that meeting. All right. My apologies.
Really quickly, Dan, are you reading the items out of the agenda for March 4th? Because I don't see that in the agenda. I was just a little bit confused at the order of the agenda that you're going through today.
I saw it in there. It was just top level March 4th working meetings, subsection agenda, subsection discussions. First one rescheduled, Jonathan Meadows, I think.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay, got it. My bad.
Just figured out myself too.
Okay. Right. It's a little, the planned agenda to the subsection. Sorry about that. That's confusing. Maybe we'll tidy up the planned meeting so everyone doesn't get lost in that top section. All right. So we're done with Jonathan Meadows. Mark, a few weeks ago when we were talking about the importance of operators in cloud native world, we proposed maybe having you share a bit about the scaled agile frameworks, SAFe, and how are you feeling about that? I know you got a lot on your plate. Is that something that you want to put on the calendar just to start tracking that, or is that something we'll sort of keep in the back of our minds in the future?
I can do that. I'm on a jury trial. Happens to be off today. This is going to go another week apparently. Sorry for these personal details, but if we put it a couple of weeks off, I'd be happy to do it.
So let me just go up to the planned meetings real quick. So March 11th, we have a presentation. 18th, probably do more of an open session or working session. How about the 25th?
Sounds good.
Far enough out?
Yep.
All right.
Well, while we have it on the topic on the agenda, is anybody else on the call using it? Scaled Agile. No, interesting. Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Did someone have a comment there?
I think Capital One's using a scaled agile SAFe methodology.
They are, yeah.
Is that pre or post all the big changes?
I think that was I think they used it before we did, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think a lot of benefit goes to your highly regulated organizations that have to check, have to have the process to be able to check the boxes. Two pin serves makes a lot of sense.
I mean, the piece of this that's really at the cutting edge for this group, I think, is how to decide what about security and privacy ends up in technical debt and how to manage it. Because Agile is Agile to some extent, but this is a kind of meta framework for Agile that tries to expose some of this and makes claims about how to do rapid cycle DevOps, embraces DevOps as a core principle, frequent testing and that sort of thing. But when the pedal hits the metal with this, there's a lot of overlap between site reliability engineering for ops kind of functions and product building for, traditional releases. And in the middle of that, sort of natural tension, I guess, is, this problem of saying, oh, there is a better way to secure this piece of code or this overall framework or this application, or to audit it, or to surface the policy compliance or lack thereof to ourselves, to the testers, or to the auditors. But how do we do this, and when do we do it within a project management framework that makes sense to the business owners? So that's a real, active area of figuring out how to do this. I don't think SAFE has all the answers for that because it's so mature and being used in defense and finance, it's kind of at the cutting edge of trying to figure out how to do it. So that's why I think it might be relevant here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you know, in that mix, you have organizational tensions where the groups that the framework is facilitating collaboration amongst are, you know, potentially in very different reporting lines and don't necessarily actually collaborate.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, use case in my organization is our cyber ops team. So think about this. These are the guys looking at, you know, incidents and doing monitoring. Probably some of the people on this call do that. Ask yourself, was that agile? You know, what's the product for that, right? So you get into issues of, well, maybe it's quality, maybe it's, you know, speed, maybe it's, you know, other dimensions that you can measure, but, you know, that's really kind of twisting the model, I think, in directions that wasn't really intended. What we're talking about.
Awesome. So I don't believe we have an issue created for that. I'll take an action item to go set that up. Mark, if you have some cycles between now and the 25th, you know, it'd be great if you could add some details to, you know, kind of flesh out an abstract. So, you know, folks that are, you know, curious about what is going to be presented have a little bit more context.
Okay, we'll do. What? Actually, I might as well do it since I have to do this NIST PR. I might as well put it in now.
Appreciate taking that. Okay. All right, so next up we have security assessment process for projects looking towards graduations. Does anyone have that? I think this might be a Sarah item that she included.
Dan, yeah, I put this item in the agenda about
awesome.
Assessment. So, yeah, so just to give some context, like, so a couple of weeks ago, we had this discussion around how do we do renewals of security assessment? And the kind of the consensus there was, you know, it's not a big priority right now because most of them haven't gone to the initial assessment. And secondly, like, who initiates the reassessment? So we kind of left it there at that point. And so this issue around security assessment is around projects looking to graduate. And it comes along the heels of Harbor as well. So just to give context to everybody, like, Harbor is looking to graduate. And one of the recommendations has been it gets a recommendation from SIG Security before it goes into the graduation process. And so the thought here was, so SIG Runtime did a review of Harbor as well as SIG Storage. And so what they did was they went through the due diligence doc and they like checked off items from the graduation criteria. And that was their review for Harbor. And so I was thinking, like, we should actually have a process around projects looking to graduate, right? Because in this case, we have multiple options. So we can say that, okay, Harbor hasn't done the initial security assessment. So does it have to go through the initial assessment before it gets a recommendation from SIG Security? Or we do just something like what SIG Runtime did and just review the due diligence doc and then just check off items from the list. That's another approach. And so if you do want like projects to go through the security assessment, then the question is, what about projects which have already gone through it? So if a project looking to graduate has already done the initial assessment, should we just do like a renewal on that project, or what's the process there? So this is just to initiate the talk around that and probably, you know, figure out the process and the details for these kind of assessments for projects looking to graduate.
And this is Michael, by the way. And you know, one of the things I'm looking for is potentially, like what you mentioned, Ash, very eloquently, is, you know, some form of checkboxes that basically indicate what is that SIG Security is looking for, right? So, for example, did they go through penetration testing? Good. Do they have a security policy? How do they respond to zero-day CVEs? Have they done that before? You know, what's the, you know, interconnectivity between components, SSL, like all the different things that more important from a security aspect. I love to actually see something that security is going to go through. And if we as Harbor are one of the first projects that you're going to go through, I mean, I wouldn't mind working with you guys to establish what that looks like.
Michael, that's amazing. Yeah.
We have initially had some conversations about
projects that had already graduated or were looking to graduate about what their process actually looks like. I'm trying to think back, this was several months ago. I started on the PR for 326 to kind of lay some of that foundation based off of Chase's recommendation at the last meeting to talk about identification of critical functions and security relevant functions of projects, documenting them in their self-assessment. So I believe it was the intent that anyone going to graduation in the CNCF would have a self-assessment subject to talk prioritization. So if somebody is going to graduation and they don't have a self-assessment, that they should come to us, and we'll probably need to have concurrence from the talk that they're prioritized above incubating or other projects that we're looking to do. That way we could do the self-assessment, because it's about 3 weeks of work, about 20 hours on the part of SIG Security. The project itself will have significantly more work, but the self-assessments do provide a lot of that initial security specific documentation. And for projects that have self-assessments that we've done in the past, and they're looking to graduate, if we talked about if there had been like a specific amount of time between when we did the self-assessment and when they're graduating, so probably more than a year, that using the critical functions and the security relevant functions is a way to track changes of the project and do like a delta potential assessment. But we don't have a lot of the details of that written up. So I would recommend creating an issue, linking it to issue 326. That way we can actually start exploring some of these things. I do think that the self-assessment as it exists today, plus the changes in the PR, will capture a lot of that initial security data set. But the checklist of other SIGs off of products is like as a recommendation. We could potentially look at including that when things come to us prior to graduation, so that it's all linked together in our repos.
Yeah, so I took a look at Emily's PR 326. It looks really awesome. Like, it's pretty comprehensive, the improvements in that PR. And yeah, the critical section feature, which can also help in the renewal process, we can add that to the self-assessment. That could be like pretty helpful for renewals, especially. So yeah, if you guys want, I can start like a PR around this, and then I can link it in 326. So just to get this process started, and we can probably formalize it in the next coming weeks.
So
if you could create it as a separate ticket just for that specific change, that way we can get the 326 merged in, and then we can continue the discussion about the graduation process, and then we could do a separate PR just off of that.
Sure, I'll create an issue for the specific graduation use case then. Okay.
Yep, that works awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Quick question, Emily. I see the issue 326 in SIG Security. Is the assessment somewhere in here as well? I mean, I see some of the amendments here.
The changes to the self-assessment are in the PR associated with it. So if you go to assessments folder in the repo, we have it's a file called outline.md, and that is the self-assessment template that projects are supposed to fill out when they come and get an assessment from SIG Security. And the PR associated with 326, I don't have the number memorized just yet. I will eventually.
Yeah, no problem. So essentially,
it has all the changes. I'll drop the PR in the channel.
So Michael, let me just take a quick pass at the high level of what we want to accomplish and the timeline. So as we're still right before our final gate that we established for ourselves in formalizing the assessment process. We set the completion of 5 assessments, and that's our timeline. We're working through that, and we're still finalizing things here. in the stages of sandbox, incubating, and graduating, the general guidelines is that sandbox and incubating, there's not a lot of formality. As we get into graduating, there's an opportunity for a little bit more formal process. And we are introducing a process that we've validated and built out an entire team to help projects go through that process. Now, as we mentioned, that process has a timeline that's more along the lines of a month-long journey. And so Harbor is right at the edge of graduating. And we do not want to assert that we are blocking Harbor because our month-long process isn't completed, and you all have to do that. We'd love to partner with you and have you come through our process. Potentially discuss how we can help you navigate your timeline and match that to the timeline that we will inevitably have as a volunteer SIG. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll do is I will actually go get that outline.md file, and I'll start filling it in for Harbor, so that I can basically PR it into your assessments. That way we can actually start commenting on that as a PR. One of the things I'm looking forward to is if there is a representative from SIG Security that has possibly some time, so that they be responsible for basically reading some of the content we create, as well as working with us, so they can give a thumbs up, thumbs down, or no opinion. So we'd love to have someone that I can work with on that.
So Michael, I would recommend reading through this security assessments guide, which describes the entire process. And the first way that we start that is through a ticket to do the assessment of Harbor. So recommend looking at the guide first, because that'll give you all the instructions for what needs to be submitted, how it gets submitted, how the process works. That way it'll familiarize you with like what expectations there are, where all the docs are, as well as we do have a lead reviewer that gets assigned to these things, and they'll primarily be that individual that's working with you and coordinating with you throughout the assessment process. So definitely recommend taking a look.
Yeah, I'll take a look at all of this stuff. Emily, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ash, do you have the cycles too?
Yeah, I was gonna just say there's a couple of examples in the repo that I think you can look at that should give you a better idea of it as well.
Yeah, I saw PA in there, so I'll take a look at what they did.
Ash, do you have the cycles to, you don't necessarily have to sign up to be, the assessment lead, but, to be, the point of coordination with Michael to help, get through any questions that they have and the understanding of the self-assessment, and then, maybe you can hand that off.
Sure, yeah, I can help with my experience going through the process. I can help with any questions that Michael has. I'm there on the Slack channel for SIG Security. So yeah, reach out to me if you have any questions about the process itself. If you need any examples for what OPA did, I'm happy to help in that way, for sure.
Yeah, thank you all. I'll go ahead and give me a few days and I'll create this. I mean, most of the content I see here, we already have. So it should be a matter of putting it in the right context for SIG Security.
So if we want to target a presentation and really get things moving along, I do have March 18th open. So we could potentially target that as initial presentation for Harbor.
Unfortunately, March 18th. I'm out that day. It's my kid's spring break. I mean, I can do, sorry about that. I can do the 11th or the 25th, either or.
Okay. So we have an 11th, Mark, do you want to either move SAFE, into April or consider the 18th?
April's fine. This will keep.
Okay. Right on. Michael, why don't we pencil you in for the 25th, just to keep that ball rolling, and just so we have some space reserved for that. Let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. 25th it is. Great.
All right. Let me go back to the meeting notes. We're at time. If you haven't had an opportunity already, please take a look at graduation. They're going through the gauntlet of all the SIGs and working through the graduation process and due diligence. More eyes and more support would be appreciated there. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Have a great week.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right, Vinay. Take care.
Dan, sorry, I missed it. Was there a follow-on discussion about the DoD stuff?
I'm looking for Tim on the call and not seeing them.
Well, we can take it to Slack, I suppose.
Right. We directed Tim to follow up with Emily on Slack. If you are interested in that discussion, maybe raise your hand in Slack and say you want to participate in that.
Perfect. Great. Have a good one, Dan.
Right on. All right. Take it easy. Bye. Bye, y'all.